understand by capability analysis in policy formulation. Shotgun. Africa question. I like this. They just come automatically like that. You find yourself still answering it. So sometimes these small things is good to take note of them. I gave you an example of capability analysis and how it can affect rather the policy implementation. I gave an example of Malawi as one of the countries with best policies. Everybody will talk about Malawi, best policies. That's first thing. Second thing, well and nicely crafted, right? Policies, our policies in Malawi are nice and well written, well crafted. Number three, in Malawi to come up with a policy will take a long time to come up with a policy. Three things. In the end, our output is the best, very good. But the outcome is very poor. Reason, I'll give you a simple example. We designed, and I was the head of the design team of two policies, three policies, I think. Early childhood policy, orphans and other vulnerable children's policy, and social protection policy. These three policies. And at the government level, when you do these things, I gave you the outline how it is. You are working under the government, so there's that line around. You are the technician here. And you can see between the technician and the president up there, there's no technician around. So it's just politicians, right? So you are the key. You know what you are supposed to do. You know what you have to do. Assessment, analysis, and all sorts of things you do. And you come to writing. Which people should help you to write, which stakeholders, which partners, and all sorts of things. You bring them together, you come up with that thing. Beautiful. Right? And sometimes there will be incidences where you have big conferences. Stakeholders, as I said, are people who are interested in what you do, who can input into it, whatever it is or something. Partners, in most cases, will be people who maybe support you financially or technically to come up with a policy, right? Now, once you have that up and running, partners may wish to say, okay, for example, if it is the UN system, they have their structure. They say, oh, all East and Central African countries, can we meet, say maybe in Namibia or in Cape Town, to see what policies you have, say, on children, right? As Malawi, as Mozambique, as Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, whatever you come. So you go there as a technician to present these things. Everybody is listening. Those guys you assume as you are here, right? Joyce, be careful, as you are here, right? On policy analysis. Don't forget there's another guy, University of Nairobi, so doing policy analysis. George Eduardo Chapu University in Mozambique also doing policy analysis. In Zimbabwe, in Namibia, in all those things, right? Now you are looking at issues of children, you have come with policies on children. And you meet, all these countries you meet. That's why a man becomes a man or otherwise. Right? You present it. After that, in the end, it's up to individual countries to say, our policy is weak because of those. Because you are comparing, this is what Tanzania is doing, this is what this is doing, something like that. Now, how you know that your policy is effective and good is the response you get. After you meet, you come back, the requests from those countries to come and see, help us, how did you do it? Right? Something like that. Can we come and see how you implement it? That's why I said that in Malawi we are good at beautiful. Writing and everything, we're beautiful. We're British, right? And that's why we take too long to write our policies. We'll look at the grammar, at the punctuation, up to this, and it will take you years. Sometimes 2-3 years looking at those things. Grammar, punctuation, and all that. Right? Number 6, yeah. Yes, Mr. Benzo. Are you Benzo? You do Benzo, right? Mwamba Joyce. Bambo. Kwa Benja. Bambo. Yeah, why Bambo? Yeah, so now when things like this happen, you can tell which one, whatever it is, that's one thing. And in psychology, we say that when you meet like that, first meet mwakumana kumene alias baga dimanta, see your chat. This is what Malawi, this is what Kenya, you work Mozambique, Namibia, that what is going to happen in Zambia, and something like that. Right. First day is a bad day because you don't know. Level ya mzako ati madijani mwamza zako ndi pachuruma zota kwe, right? This churu zingakwere singakwere, izizi ndizi churu zingandikwere singakwere. So when you are through those things, you can tell the effectiveness of your policy design and whatever it is by the request that you get. Now, why I said Malawi were a bit bad, we are bad at implementation. This becomes very, very clear. I think in 2005, we had this type of presentation on policies on children, whatever it is, I think 2004, around that, in Namibia. Then after that, 2005, I got 234 requests from Tanzania, from Mozambique, I think, and some other country, sending their delegations to come here, right? From Tanzania, a delegation of maybe 6, 7 people. Look at your policy, you look at theirs, you compare, and they say, okay, beautiful. This is wonderful. They go back. They'll copy yours and you use it. Yeah? 1 billion and so on. Mozambique, same thing. Zimbabwe, same thing. Right. Then after some time, you say, okay, let me now also go to them. Can I come to Tanzania also see how they say, oh, come, we go there. You get shocked. You find that at the level of implementation, they are so fast. And you can see the results quickly, right? Quick from here, they are back, they're on the ground with the people, doing everything around, this and that and what. And you come and say, but we have not done these things in Malawi. What is happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Ask them, why do you do this? The very beautiful director in Dar es Salaam, who was so good. He came here, he visited, took him to Mazengera, to look at some of these things. He went back. A year after that, I went to visit them also. They took me out. What they are doing there was in 90% fantastic post what we have done here. Right? And that's at now implementation level, right? Yeah. So I asked him, what happens? You know, doing a great job. He says, no, 2 things. I noted in Malawi. I said, what did you note? You didn't tell me. He says, what I noted is 1, bureaucracy. Too much bureaucracy in Malawi. You want to do something, you have to ask this one, authority from this, permission from that. You take too long. Right? So you don't implement. It will take months before somebody says, yes, go ahead. You are looking for money, too much. That's why you are slow. Here, as a director, I want to do something. I'm going to do those things that those bureaucrats are asking. I'll do it and tell them the results. I've done this. I said, okay, number 1. Number 2, look at our policy and look at your policy. Your policy is so smart, like it is written by Briton in London. They have a beautiful English. Yeah, or no punctuation, no nothing, no whatever. Don't even say, what do you want this? Do we understand it? Yes. Can we implement it? Yes. But in why you take 1 year, today, let's review it. Let's look at it and review it. No, let's change this, let's change that. Zaka zikupita. Those are our weaknesses. And indeed, this is our weakness here at implementation level. We are too good, too systematic, but we are not. We don't have a thrust to get into action, right? Number 2, it's too much of what we call the bottom, so the top-bottom approach. Top-bottom approach, right? Directions come from Capitol Hill down. So there, you have that bottleneck. If a minister is away, right, you have to wait until she comes back to do something. Right. So Those are the issues. We shall look at those very, very quickly before we close on this topic here. Now, the other issue is I mentioned issues of personnel. Do you have the personnel? Do you have the personnel who have the skill? You have to have the skill in that particular area. And the administration, that's the bureaucracy I was mentioning about. And number 4, political support. I said policies and politics are bedfellows, right? If your policy is against the ideology of a political party, it will not be implemented, right? Do you have the political support, for example? So all these things come into policy implementation. So sometimes you can be let down because of no political support, for example. 5, do you have laws which can support you, right? So in Malawi here is the back and forth. Sometimes you have a policy without law. Sometimes you have a law without a policy. That's what happens in Malawi. It's up and upside down. Now, these things also bring in implementation challenges, right? You want to do something and you are worried. If I do this and something happens, somebody sues, what are we going to do, right? Or this thing cannot work because the law says don't do this, right? So all these challenges actually create the bottlenecks on how we deal with issues of policy around. It's quite interesting. So here, policy implementation is about your policies and your outcomes, right? So it's policy objectives, output, and outcomes. And also the issues of your goals. How do you focus on your goals? And also here, you find that when you are looking at your implementation, you certainly look at the issues of is it flexible enough? Can we realize our objectives? Can it be operational? Or can we link the goals and the objectives, and therefore also the action? This is how policy implementation goes on, and also it can cause quite a lot of those headaches if you don't have. Particularly the issues of personnel, much more the issues of skill. And over and above that, the issues of resources for implementation. Do you have resources for implementation? So these are issues that require to be taken care of when you are looking at your, what is this? Okay. All right. Somebody coming here. Let's look at how you can approach policy implementation. There are 2 ways. I want you to really pay attention here. It's an examinable area. We're going to do that. So I just want to look at 2 ways in which we look at policy. There are 2 distinct ways in which policies can be implemented. These actually we call them approaches. There are 2 approaches through which policies can be implemented. One, which we call the top-bottom approach. So you have the top-bottom approach. 2 policy implementation approaches. One, the top-bottom approach, and 2, the bottom-up approach. We have 2, top-bottom and bottom-top approach. Now, these, I will go through them quickly, looking at the advantages, disadvantages, and something like that. Number 1 here, let's look at the top-bottom approach. The top-bottom approach is that type of policy implementation where it starts from above, to, if it is in government, from central government, right? To be from above, say from central government, where you have very systematic bureaucratic arrangements. So it is from somewhere. If it is a policy on children, it will start from top, and the top on policy on children will be the ministry responsible for children, ministry responsible for fisheries, ministry responsible for education. That will be the highest level of policy implementation in a top-bottom approach. And the policy holder in that arrangement will be the minister. The minister is the top policy holder of that type of arrangement, the top-bottom. Instructions come from above, getting down, and usually it provides what we call a centralized bureaucratic machinery. It's a very centralized bureaucracy. Just comes from directions from up, down, and implementation is down, but all directions, rules and regulations come from above, right? So rules and regulations are very, very clear. You go down, do this, do this, do this, just do this, something like that. That is a top-bottom approach. And this one good thing is it provides very, very clear system of commands. So there's a system of commands, you know, from up, down. The command is just up, down, just up, down. And also, usually, it will start with all policies. Something that I should always mention, that every policy, your questions have been, what happens to a policy? Nobody has asked this question ever before. What happens to a policy? Joyce, what do you think happens to it? Process to prepare sima, ufa, chani, sinyo chat. Output, sima. Outcomes, wellness, eating, chani, sinyo chat. No. We're looking at the process of policy formulation to implementation, whatever it is. What is the output? Yamigal. And what is the outcome? No, just talk clearly. I mean, nobody knows the answers wholly, but we can share. What do you think is the output out of the policy? The output of your policy, in the end, apart from the document that you have which gives you rules, whatever it is, and something like that, all policies in the end become projects. Those are the outputs. Programs and projects. Early Childhood Development Center, right? Comes from a policy somewhere. Rules and regulations, how to operate ECDs, right? The output is the ECD out there. The outcome, the awareness of those children and all those things, the benefits for the parents and all sorts of things. This is how you can look at it, something like that, right? Poverty alleviation policy. In the end, it's not just the document. Programs, Mutugula Pakomo, safety nets, outcomes, the awareness of the families, individuals, and something like that. You can see how you relate to this, right? This is how it is. So the top-bottom approach is that systematic structure you dictate from above, it just goes down. And here, the people who benefit from those projects and programs as outputs become very passive. They just receive, right? Do you think people who receive from Tukrapa Komavese? Anangu wao zazizi kupasa 5,000 kwa. They didn't ask them kwa 5,000 kwa chikoza kukwani na chandi cha. Sio chati. Sasa no. Basi yase okay. Tupasa ni mbuzi muziwe ta. It's not a campaign, it's just how bad we can have a policy. The 150,000 as a policy, social protection policy, is okay. But it is a top-bottom. It's dictated. 2% 150. Did they ask those people with 150 kwa chat? They didn't, eh? Yes, that's the top-bottom approach. Because people who are receiving, that's why they receive and they drink it. Right? Because they are not part of the formulation. They don't know why or the benefits, what it is. Right? So this is where the political influence is changing, is skewing, right? the actual benefit of that policy. It is politics now. It's not the policy. When we were designing that policy, I was there, we are doing it. We are looking at improve people's livelihoods, right? Be able to access basic needs in their home: water, shelter, food, school fees, Medicare, right? And it was very, very small calculated. A primary school child, 6,000 per month, right? Makope, chani, akadia chigege pagofo, all those things. So that the child is not feeling hungry, is concentrating. In the end, will excel. Inject back into government economy. Something like that. These are things that we brought in when we were designing. That politics says, no, Tiku is 150 years, Azirandina, 150. Without telling them what and why. There's no assessment, right? So you can see how these policies come out and how bad they become, right? So the question is, what I mentioned earlier on, the capacity. Was there any skill for these people when they talked about 150? They just said that to pass 150. Asangara zati votera. See you yet? Yeah. But really getting down to people and finding out. Right? As your own household, Baba. Shima kuvuta kwa mbili ni jana. Mene mukone hapa. Tita tukutandizeni. Chimeni mungachifune kwa mbili. Kweni ndi chiti. You should be able to say, ako mafeyo. Chakudi ya tima lima tirinacho. India anao kuza tiko za kutandizana nao. Kwa mati vuta ni fertilizer. Ndimbeo. Siyonje? Geti fertilizer ndimbeo. China. Basi choncho na maganyo chana and so forth. Okay, maganyo, okay. Tisu pasa sondrama pangono. Dumsatai ntai kwa mbili kumaganyo kuja kwetu. Muzi gwira minda mwanu for you to buy some food. Those are the things that you do look at those things. Now, these guys who are giving 150, they have not done a throughput analysis. That's why they just get money and drink. See what? But having competition, each one buying and drinking and they go home. Nothing. As if we are so zina. Bora yemweyo, akara yemweyo. That's all. And that's what politicians want, that they enjoy those things. But for me as an expert in this field, that's nonsense. I would tell you, this is stupid. I mean, you're just wasting money for nothing. Yes. You better get all that money. Tell everybody what primary school is and a copy out there. It's better. Yeah. So these are some of these things. Let's look at the top-bottom approach. Advantages. One is very consistent. That's one good thing with the top-bottom. Time is fast. Now let's try to do. So the top-bottom, one of the advantages, it becomes very consistent. From what they have designed, how they want to do it, it articulates the goal. It really focuses on the goal so much, right? That's one of the advantages of the top-bottom. And number two, there's always a hierarchy. Now, where you have a hierarchy, you have a point of reference, right? In terms of something, you know where you can take your problem to, right? If it can't work, I'll go to this. Doesn't work, I'll go to DC. DC will know where to go, right? Where to go until they get to the minister or something like that. So that hierarchy is good because it means it becomes uniform. Implementation can become uniform. Number three, the top bottom is good because it uses very knowledgeable people. They know the type of people they are using, the skills of those people, and they have the capacity. Sometimes even in terms of resources, right? So they have both the human and financial resources to be able to implement a policy in that particular arrangement. It becomes very, very easy, right? And also, it's easy for them to understand the causes of the problem, the effects of the problem, and they're able to monitor and follow that very, very clearly. And also, another advantage, rules, there are always a lot of rules from top to bottom, right? And it's good for monitoring and trying to follow up on what is going to happen. And in terms of resources, it becomes very easy. They can go to donors, get money. That's one good with the top bottom. They're able to talk to people at that level and bring the money, right? And also the issue of implementation, they're able to meet the needs, right? And usually those needs would have been thoroughly assessed, and that becomes quite important. I'll share these notes, I think, probably when we meet again. I just want to complete this set, and we'll start another set. We shall, when we meet next Thursday, or you want us to meet tomorrow? No. Yes, I would. No, tomorrow, no. Okay. So, also, the top bottom is easier to identify who can implement what, right? It's easier for them to go and get people who can implement. Those are some of the advantages of the top bottom.
You are the guys who are supposed to discuss. Yeah.
I'm not sorry if the time is almost gone. Let it bang itself. Let's look at the disadvantages. There are also plenty of disadvantages of the top bottom. We have this author De Leon and De Leon. They argue that the top bottom approach to policy implementation has an advantage because it does circumvent. It does circumvent the top bottom does circumvent the actual beneficiaries sometimes, right? The top bottom can circumvent people who are supposed to benefit. You remember issues of politics, right? If it is DPP, they want to implement something, they actually leave people who really deserve because they belong to MCP and give those who are DPP even when they have something. Yeah, so you can see even politics here can work in the top-bottom approach, where you start choosing people because they belong to your party, belong to your ideology, and something like that. That's number one. Okay, number two, it's very easy. The top-bottom is very easy to manipulate because the power is up, right? And those who are powerful, they are always above. So they can manipulate the program, and also they can use their authority to actually change the actual expectations of what that policy is going to achieve, right? So there's a lot of political manipulation with the top-bottom approach. Also, it becomes a tactic sometimes. The top-bottom is a tactic of control, right? They just want to control you. Then they can use those maybe resources or the policy to ensure that you are controlled, and there's nothing you can do. And also, the top-bottom is too dependent on the law. Rules and regulations, very, very strict. No, you can't do that. The law says this. No, you can't do that. The law says this. Something like that, right? It's too dependent on the laws and the regulations. And therefore, you find that citizens sometimes cannot benefit, right? Because the law says something, expectation says something, and the implementers also do something else. So these create some of these problems, and these become disadvantages, for example. It's very, very easy. Citizens want something else, but the law does not allow, right? Let's assume citizens want same-sex marriage, right? The top body will say, no, but the law says it. There's no same-sex marriage in Malawi. Full stop. We don't even argue, right? So some of these things. But of course, this is also an advantage. The strength of the law is able to give proper guidance on how implementation of policies should be. So, in short, that is it. Now, let's look at the bottom-up approach, number two. This one here is where actions are initiated by the beneficiaries out. It's at a low level. That's where people identify the need, right? That's why people advocate for change. That's why people ask government to bring in interventions. And when these interventions are in place, then those people are able to benefit at that level, right? And the same people who are demanding for service sometimes become implementers as well, right? So it belongs to them quite a lot. That's quite good. And also, in fact, the strategy on how to achieve something starts from below there. Now, in Malawi here, our policy in government management of activities, you all know now, from the 80s, from 93 backwards to the 60s, we were much more of top bottom, right? Immediately after the 90s to where we are now, we are using the bottom up. We have heard about the issue of decentralization, right? Decentralization is a bottom-up approach in policy implementation, where the power and all other things belong to the district commissioner or district council, right? The implementation, budgeting, and everything to the district council. The government just gives the rules and the regulations and the funding, whatever it is. But our type of decentralization in Malawi here is not more pronounced. Maybe it is something like the centralization and devolution, where central government is still in control, right? They say, okay, you are free down there. You pass a constituency fund, this and that for those people to deal with and so forth. But they're still controlling quite a lot. They can withhold funding so that the councils must follow certain rules and something like that. So we have that mixed up type of approach of our bottom-up approach in Malawi here as decentralization. But as we move on, we're almost getting there now. I think when I was in service, this was just a statement, but now you can see that at the district level, the district officer at the district office is more answerable to the district commissioner than the director in the ministry. So this is where it is. So the bottom-up approach also gives independence to on implementation of activities by technicians at that level. They do more of work how they see it fit than when they are controlled from above. And also, we find that at lower level, it's easier to implement activities than the top-bottom approach, because the discretion to do remains with the people on the ground, and also it becomes good for them. Let's look at some of the advantages quickly of the bottom-up. Here, implementation focuses on community interests. That's one advantage, because the people are very close. See, George, Mafum, they are very close to the implementation center. The DC is just there. They can walk into the DC, they can walk into the education, they can walk into the police, walk into everything. So they are very close to the people. This is one of the advantages. And also, it is very realistic, because the closeness of people and the management of the policy that is very close. So it's most likely to be very realistic. In other words, the chances that they meet the needs is very high than meeting the needs of somebody in Solgin in Sanje when you're in Capitol Hill here, right? It's difficult. But for the district commissioner in Sanje to meet the needs of a citizen in Solgin within Sanje is easier, right? You can just drive there and appreciate the situation and do something like that, other than somebody drive from Capitol Hill to Sanje and to Solgin to appreciate. So that gives us the belief that people benefit better and faster. Secondly, because of the closeness to power and authority, it's very easy for mindset change of people to understand. It's easier for people to understand the policy. In Sanje, for example, when the implementers are in Sanje than when somebody is in Capitol Hill. So it is good for actual mindset change. And also, it gives people some degree of right? So there's some democracy in the bottom up. It is easily referred to, they can easily consult, and they can easily actually produce some tangible results around. Let's look at some of the disadvantages of the bottom up. Here you'll find that one of those is a lot of challenges. One of the disadvantages that at lower level, we don't have the technical skills. Highly qualified and technically up people are always in headquarters. So they're in Capitol Hill, they're all over there. But people in Doha, just across the street, they don't have a technician, maybe on water management, all sorts of things, something like that. So lack of skills and the capacity, and also the discretion. people at the district level, actually, there's a lot of sort of some corruption because their controllers are too far in Capitol Hill and in Sanje. So the issue of misuse of resources becomes quite rampant because the controls are very far. And also, the policy which was created in Capitol Hill with a clear goal may be changed at the implementation level in the bottom-up approach, right? I've heard of situations where during Joyce Banda, Kunali building houses for older people, right? Malata, something like that. Malata, chow, chow. Yes, that one there, right? Now, at district level, how it was implemented is very different from how they designed it, right? Go do an assessment in the village, identify older people who need shelter, right? Go through the chiefs. That was the regulation. Now, at the district level, it was the chiefs who were assessing people must benefit and go to the DC, well, these people must benefit. Just like the AIP, right? So the chiefs would identify, oh, it's cousins, uncles, whatever it is, as beneficiaries. So the DC says, okay, you have 42 people, yes. Here is Malata for 42 people, Nyumba size Mwagud. And it goes back, they only build the whole village, that chief houses with iron sheets and injerwa, Yatiramu family. Corruption. Right? You see. So these are the challenges again of the bottom up. No controls. Right? So there's what we call the economies of affection. You know what the economies of affection is? Yeah. Mr. Fuller, you don't economies of affection. What is affection? What's affection? It's love. So when we talk about economies of affection, we're talking about favoritism, where in the distribution of goods and services, you favor people who are close to you, right? Nepotism, for example, right? That's the economies of affection, where I want to recruit people who are close to my family or something, right? Now this one, okay, the mwana wa uncle uja, this one. This is that and that we call it economies of affection. And it helps to create a lot of corruption in the process, right? And also, it can not give you the results that you desire. Because people you take in may not have the capacity to actually implement. We see what is happening now, right? Economies of affection in the police. You cannot become a police officer if you don't belong to any police office. See what? Yeah, can you join the police? They don't even know you. So if there was a Bengo, you have a lot of Bengos in the police up to the end. Or the cousins of Bengos all the way down. That is what we call the economies of affection. Right. Kondera. Pachama to Kondera. Madja. What do you go Pacheo? Kondera na kabela Kondera. Are you Cheo? You don't even know Cheo Kondera. Those are the Kondera. Nepotism is Kondera, based on your relationship or something like that, or based on your tribe, or based on something like that. Eh? Yes. So that can create a lot of those. And also another advantage that the original goal may be subverted, right? May be changed at the implementation level, because economies of affection, as I mentioned earlier on, instead of giving Malata to people who deserve, you give Malata to your cousins. You know? So the whole idea of how you are going to deal with your implementation actually comes to zero. Okay, thanks very much. I think let's meet next. What I'll do is by next, we'll have plenty of notes, and I'll try to not upload them, but you'll get them from me here. Right, so see you. I think I'll be trying to come up with a second assignment and also with your results, assignment results.